Tribulation of Myriad Races, Chapter 41, Fast Learner. Suyu could hear the sound of the saber flying toward him. This time, he wasn't able to react. He knew the attack was coming, but his body couldn't react fast enough. He could feel the blade touching his back. It's over. The moment that thought crossed his mind, the saber was frozen. Not far away, Lu Wenyan was feeling very satisfied with Suyu's performance. However, he did not show his true feelings. Instead, he walked up to Suyu with a frown and said, "You can't even deal with a trash-injured great strength cultivator? That is a trash cultivator from the Myriad race cult that is weaker than those in the Windcatcher department, those in the city guards, those in the Great Xia army, in martial dragon guards, and the front line. Any random soldier from the front line will be able to easily kill this opponent even with a lower cultivation level." Lu Wenyan appeared incredibly unhappy. To the side, the Windcatcher department's chief did not know whether to laugh or cry. That was an enemy at the 6th stage great strength realm. And what was Suyu's cultivation level? He was only at the source opening realm. He wasn't even at the 8th stage where he could finally start using martial techniques. He was only a 7th stage source opening cultivator, but he had nearly killed a 6th stage great strength cultivator. This instructor was still dissatisfied? And he was even comparing this kid against a soldier from the front line? What joke was that? Even a soldier from the front line would need to be at least a 4th stage great strength cultivator to kill someone like that. In terms of body quality, reaction speed, and explosive strength, Suyu was far too weaker than his opponent. If it wasn't for his intelligence, he would have been killed the moment he attempted the ambush. Suyu looked sorry. He was gasping for breath with numerous wounds on his body. He smiled helplessly and said, "Instructor, his vitality is too strong. He lasted so long before dying. I couldn't get a chance to cut him twice." "You only have one chance," Lu Wenyan said. "For a weaker party to kill a stronger party, there won't be multiple opportunities. There will only be one chance. If you had cut into his head instead of his shoulder when he was distracted, he would have been killed immediately. Do you think your enemies will give you a second chance on the battlefield? Immediately after an enemy encounter, one of you will die. Either you don't launch the ambush or you prepare fully before doing so to ensure the kill. Do not gamble with your life." Lu Wenyan was stern, "Thus, you can only blame yourself for your bad judgment in timing your ambush. If I wasn't around, your enemy would have killed you with that final attack." Suyu nodded sullenly, accepting the criticism. 2 merit points for a middle-stage great strength cultivator. "But since I helped you with it, you'll only be getting 1 point for it. Do you disagree?" "No." Suyu shook his head. He was happy with 1 point. A late-stage great strength cultivator would grant 3 merit points per kill while an early-stage great strength cultivator would only grant 1 point. Thus, the point he got was basically the same as what he would get for an early-stage great strength cultivator. Only now did Suyu realize how hard it was to earn merit points. Previously, he would be rewarded with 1 point per language mastered. It was time-consuming, but still better than this where he had to put his life on the line to earn merit points. If this was the case for the academy as well, how were those students that had yet to materialize their willpower supposed to earn merit points? How many of them were capable of killing great strength cultivators? Even on a battlefield, killing a great strength enemy would be a difficult task for a great strength soldier. After risking one's life, one would earn no more than 3 merit points. It was clear how hard it was to earn merit points. A faint smile appeared on Lu Wenyan's face, but the smile vanished quickly. He said, "You will be considered to have graduated from my teachings after gaining the ability to kill a middle-stage great strength cultivator. Your performance today where you nearly got yourself killed is not acceptable. Do not hesitate to use any trick you can during battles. This is a matter of life and death, not a spar on a training field. Do not restrict yourself from any trickeries. We don't care. We only care about the result." After bidding Zhang Hua farewell, Lu Wenyan started walking away. While walking, he said, "Why do you insist on using demonic beasts in your illusions? There are many things you can manifest in your illusions. Not everyone is afraid of demonic beasts. For example, you can create women who are naked cough. You know what I mean. You can even make me appear in your illusions. I'm a Skysoar cultivator. But then again, I'm not popular enough so you can consider using the mayor in your illusions instead. You should know what the mayor looks like. What do you think your opponent will feel upon seeing a Skysoar cultivator before them? There are many ways you can use your illusions. Do not limit yourself. I find that your thinking is too rigid as you're only using beasts in your illusions. You need more creativity." Suyu had a pensive look as he softly said, "Instructor, about naked women, cough. I've not seen any before. I don't think I can create a convincing illusion of one. Why don't I? What bullshit are you trying to say? Lu Wenyan berated him before coughing. I was making a random example. Don't think too much about it. Kid, keep those stupid thoughts out of your mind. Lu Wenyan was regretting his earlier words. If this kid really went to those places to learn what naked women looked like and his father found out about it, would that old man rush back from the front line to look for Lu Wenyan? Suyu nodded obediently, but a new thought appeared in his mind as he said, Instructor, do you think others will be fooled if I use the prefect as my illusion? Lu Wenyan glanced at him without saying anything. This was quite a gutsy kid. Xia Longgu was the prefect of Great Xia. This kid did not seem to feel any reverence toward that person. Suyu was still happily talking away. If I create an illusion of the prefect, would I scare my opponent to death? Maybe they'll be in disbelief? Why don't I add a woman beside the prefect? Prefect Xia is out on a date with a woman when the enemy stumbles upon them. Would that be enough to stun the enemy? Lu Wenyan stroked his beard while praising inwardly that this kid was actually a fast learner. But was this kid not aware that he was playing with fire there? Sure, this kid was still very far away from Xia Longwu right now. But what if Xia Longwu saw the illusion in the future? Lu Wenyan wouldn't dare to imagine the consequences for that. Cough, cough. Sure, you do you. Lu Wenyan was unwilling to say more. He had merely provided simple advice and this kid was taking the idea further expanded on it. What else could he say? While Lu Wenyan was still thinking, Suyu changed the topic and said, Instructor. I saw the contents of this year's exam yesterday. The War Academy exam rewards 3 drops of source chi liquid for the student finishing first. Lu Wenyan looked at Suyu, wondering what this kid was trying to say. What if I take both exams? Won't I earn the source chi liquid if I can finish first at the Martial Academy exam? The first place he referred to was the first place in Nanyuan. The reward was provided by the mayor, not any of the academies. Those academies wouldn't really care about the first place holder of a small city like Nanyuan. Their interest would only be piqued if it was the first place holder in the entirety of Great Xia. Lu Wenyan was speechless. Are you going to scam the reward for yourself? No, instructor. The rules never mention that I must join a war academy after passing the exam. So it doesn't matter if I don't join after getting first place, right? Are you so sure that you can get first place? Nanyuan might be a small city without a lot of geniuses, but, wait, this kid might really be able to get first place. This was Nanyuan City. Not a big city. The 7th stage source opening realm was more than enough. Lu Wenyan shot Suyu a glance. He had a feeling that this student of his was getting more and more bold recently. Look at how he was even thinking of scamming the city out of its first place reward now. He sank into thought. When did this student of his start changing? Oh, Lu Wenyan suddenly recalled that Suyu had started changing ever since he was told that he was too indecisive. Since then, this kid has changed. He was no longer indecisive. He was so decisive that it was scary at times. Not even Lu Wenyan had thought of scamming the city out of its reward before. You do you. Lu Wenyan couldn't be bothered to stop Suyu. Instead, he said, but don't let that get in the way of your Cultural Research Academy exam. Also, Wu Wenhai might not care even if you snag the reward, but the person placing second will probably feel like killing you. Suyu did not seem to mind. 3 drops of source chi liquid were on the line here. They were worth as much as everything he had. He wasn't about to give up on them when they were there for the taking. The 2 exams are going to happen at different times. I checked. I'll be able to take both. Suyu did not think there would be an issue with his plan. If the examinations weren't held at different times, the secondary school wouldn't have allowed the students to apply for multiple examinations in the first place. That was their way of giving their students more chances to get into an academy. Suyu had registered for both Cultural Research Academy and War Academy examinations. Thus, he could sit for both of them. It was the 1st of June today. The examinations weren't that far away. Over the past 10 or so days, he had followed Lu Wenyan everywhere hunting for myriad race cult members. Although he had not gotten much chance to actually fight, he could feel that he was getting near the 8th stage. Perhaps a few more cultivation sessions and a few drops of blood essence would push him into that stage. And at the 8th stage source opening realm, would there still be a match for him in Nanyuan among the students? The first place was basically his. He was basically getting 3 drops of source chi liquid for free. Why would he say no to that? Lu Wenyan kept his mouth shut. He felt like he had led this kid astray. This was such a simple and innocent kid before. But now, he was starting to get all these messy ideas in his brain, such as trying to look at some naked women and so on. Lu Wenyan was very worried. This kid wouldn't really go and do so, right? Su Yu, before willpower materialization, your willpower can waver very easily. The moment you get near the fairer sex, you will cripple your willpower. Do you understand? This is why I'm still single after all these years. Don't do anything stupid. Su Yu blinked. Was that true? But he had never heard that before. Then again, he only knew two cultural researchers, Lu Wenyan and Bai Feng. Furthermore, he had only spent a day with Bai Feng. Thus, Lu Wenyan was naturally the authority in willpower cultivation for him. I understand. I will chop whoever dares to entice me to death. Su Yu nodded his head with a solemn declaration. He would show no mercy to anyone who dared to ruin his willpower materialization. Lu Wenyan had a feeling he had just said something wrong again. A teacher should serve as a role model. I should be very careful in what I say in the future. If this kid fails to get a wife in the future, forget it. If that really happens, I'll try introducing some girls to him in the future. Lu Wenyan was feeling very helpless. A teacher couldn't be caught lying. He had to watch what he said around Su Yu in the future. Chapter 42, Think More. 1. Master and disciple returned together. Recently, they had been leaving home early and returning home late. After entering the city, the two went separate ways. Su Yu returned home while Lu Wenyan went to school. At the neighborhood's entrance, Chen Hao was crouched sullenly while counting the ants on the ground. When he heard footsteps, he looked up and saw that it was Su Yu. He complained, why are you so late? Seeing that it was Chen Hao, Su Yu smiled and asked, what are you doing here? Waiting for you. What else? Chen Hao grumbled, you have been following Instructor Lu out of the city recently. What are you doing? The instructor is really unfair. He's not your private teacher. Why is he only taking you with him? Some of our schoolmates are already starting to gossip. He had an envious expression as he spoke. That's a skysoar. And he is teaching you alone. Why don't you get Instructor Lu to take me along as well? Before Lu Wenyan achieved willpower materialization, even if he was very good at the myriad languages, he was still a regular great strength instructor. But after reaching the skysoar realm, he turned into a big shot of Nanyuan in the blink of an eye. Even Mayor Wu Wenhai was only a second-stage skysoar cultivator. Lu Wenyan was someone who had killed someone at that cultivation level before. News of that had spread around Nanyuan. Thus, every single student in Nanyuan Secondary School aspired to learn more from Lu Wenyan. Even if the students were too young to understand the benefits of learning from a skysoar instructor, their parents would know. Chen Hao had been scolded by his father every day after returning home. His father would complain that he was incomparable to Su Yu. Look at how Lu Wenyan kept Su Yu by his side every single day. As for Chen Hao, despite his good relationship with Su Yu, he had not gained any benefits at all. Are you sure? Su Yu had a wide smile as he said, if you're sure, I'll tell Instructor Lu tomorrow. Forget it. The resentment on Chen Hao's face faded as he said helplessly, I'm too scared of Instructor Lu. I'll tremble in fear just standing near him. He is much fiercer than before. That's not him being fierce. He has just achieved willpower materialization recently and he hasn't refined his body. That's why he can't control his aura that well. Su Yu tried explaining things on the instructor's behalf. The instructor had a merciless mouth, but he was a good person. Also, Lu Wenyan really wasn't that fierce. After willpower materialization, he had not gotten the opportunity to refine his body. Even now, his body had only reached the infinite strength realm. He was somewhat unable to fully withdraw his willpower, so he would look dignified and imposing all the time. For weak cultivators like the students of the secondary school, he naturally appeared fierce. Chen Hao didn't understand what Su Yu was trying to say, but he did not really care about that topic. As he walked with Su Yu, he was grinning from ear to ear as he said, I'm near the 4th stage. I have been hearing rumbling sounds in my ear recently. Do you think that's the sign of my acupoint opening? So you're here to show off? That's absolutely not true. Chen Hao protested. Even if I can reach the 4th stage, isn't that the stage you're in? Why would I look for you to show off? It's my father. He wanted to invite you to our house for a meal. Do you remember the kill I claimed previously? I said that I made the kill but my father beat me up for lying, and then I told him that I made the kill with you. He immediately believed me. He said that you have a good brain and you have intentionally allowed me to get the kill. Therefore, he wanted to treat you to a meal. But you have been busy for the past month. I wasn't able to see you. Chen Hao had a pitiful expression. He had lived a rather miserable life for the past month due to his father's anger. He couldn't believe his father. Yu was only a 4th stage source opening cultivator as well. Why did his father refuse to believe that he was the killer? The moment he mentioned that Su Yu was present, his father concluded that Su Yu was the main contributor. That was too unfair. Before that, Chen Hao had lied to himself so much that he nearly convinced himself that he was the killer, but the beating he received from his father had brought him back to reality. He remembered that he wasn't the actual killer. It was Yu. He was confused. Why had he been believing that he was the killer all this while? Uncle Chen is too polite. Su Yu smiled. Didn't you buy the kill from me? You spent over $10,000 on it. You even gave me the merit points. The additional 30 marks for the exam is useless for me. I told my father that we're basically family. There is no need to be a stranger, but my father insisted on treating you to a meal. Chen Hao stated magnanimously, just come for a meal. Uncle Su is not around, so you'll be eating instant noodles anyway. Sure. Su Yu did not refuse. He was quite familiar with Chen Hao's father. He had met Chen Hao's father many times before when his father was still around. Ever since his father had left, he had been following Lu Wenyan around, so he hadn't gotten the chance to visit the Chen family. Chen Hao did not say anything else. He walked with Su Yu for a while before asking, Yu, have you grown stronger after following Instructor Lu around? A little. How much longer do you need to reach the 5th stage? Chen Hao sounded somewhat unhappy. Someone in class is talking behind your back. It's Zhou Chong. He was a 4th stage source opening cultivator before. While you were away, he reached the 5th stage. He's saying that you're relying on trickeries to fawn on Instructor Lu. Even if you can enter a cultural research academy, it's not because of your ability. Su Yu was indifferent. Why waste time bickering with him? You're better off using that time to cultivate. You can't say that. Chen Hao was unwilling to let the matter go. I'm getting ready to fight him one-on-one. There's not much difference between the 4th and the 5th stage anyway. I'll wait until I reach the 4th stage before looking for him. That bastard only has the guts to talk about someone behind their back. I would have declared that you've killed great strength cultivators before if you hadn't made me keep it secret. That fellow really thinks very highly of himself. Chen Hao was indignant. So what if that fellow was a 5th stage source opening cultivator? What was so special about that? His friend, Yu, had even killed 2 7th stage great strength cultivators before. After scolding in indignation, Chen Hao saw that Su Yu really didn't care, so he asked curiously, you have so many wounds on you. Have you been in special training? Have you reached the 5th stage? Su Yu really wasn't looking very good. He even had a couple of scars on his face. Seeing that Chen Hao was repeating the same question, Su Yu smiled. 5th stage? How, is this as much as you amount to? What do you mean? Nanyuan's sky is too low. Su Yu did not mind speaking frankly to his best friend. With a sigh, he said, Nanyuan is too small. The sky above Nanyuan is too low. Everyone's worldview is too narrow. Source opening, what's so special about the source opening realm? At the capital, there are plenty of 9th stage source opening cultivators our age, waiting to enter an academy before breaking through into the great strength realm. Some only need half a year in the academy to reach the 5th stage Skysoar realm. How, that's Skysoar realm? That's already the peak of Nanyuan. Our mayor is only at the Skysoar realm. In Great Zhou, an academy student can reach the Skysoar realm in only 6 months, surpassing our mayor. Tell me. What's the point of competing against all these people in Nanyuan? If this was in the past, Su Yu would definitely go teach Zhou Chong a lesson. But now, he couldn't be bothered. 5th stage source opening realm? Big deal. That was incredible in Nanyuan. But Nanyuan was such a small city. After witnessing what Baifeng could do and hearing about the super genius from Great Zhou, he no longer cared about these tiny conflicts. Lu Wenyan and Baifeng had shown him a brand new world, allowing a country bumpkin like him to get a glimpse of a bigger world. Thus, upon hearing about what his classmate was saying behind him, he only found the matter funny. He did not care. You. Chen Hao was stunned. How does any of that relate to us? Geniuses of the capital, geniuses of Great Zhou, those people are unrelated to us, right? The world Su Yu spoke of seemed so very far away for Chen Hao. That world had nothing to do with them. Why not? Su Yu looked at Chen Hao. Are you happy to stay mediocre for life? They're humans. We're humans as well. Why can't we be geniuses as well? But Chen Hao wanted to retort, but he couldn't think of anything. With a gloomy voice, he said, that is still too far away for us. I was only asking if you've reached the 5th stage. Why did you tell me about all that? I'm at the 7th stage. Suyu smiled, I'm getting ready to reach the 8th stage. Chin Hao was stunned. He reached out to touch Suyu's head, wanting to check if Suyu was sick. However, his hand was slapped away. I'm not hallucinating. I'm really at the 7th stage. While walking into his apartment building, Suyu said, there are 24 days away before the exams. I can probably reach the 8th stage easily. The 9th stage will be a challenge. But there is still around a month remaining, so I might still be able to reach the 9th stage before entering the academy. I've been spending a lot of my time on other stuff. Otherwise, I would have advanced even faster. Do you understand now, Hao? Zhou Cheng is a 5th stage source opening cultivator. For me, that's nothing. You want to join a war academy. You want to grow strong. You want to do well. In that case, you need to work harder. Don't focus only on the source opening realm. Set your sights higher. Chen Hao was stunned for a long while before saying, but even if I set my sight on the Skysoar realm, I won't be able to reach it. One's worldview determines one's future. If you focus only on the source opening realm, that will be the upper limit for you. You won't even have the motivation to climb higher. Suyu solemnly said, in the past, I only aimed to reach the infinite strength realm. I'm happy surpassing only my father. Or maybe reach the Skysoar realm and become Non-Yuan's mayor or something like that. But after seeing and learning more about the world, Skysoar realm is merely the starting point for me. I will have more goals for the future. In the past month, I have worked harder than before. I know that I'm nothing. Am I a genius? Not really. At most, I'm only somewhat talented. In the capital, I'll be an ordinary person. This little talent I have is nothing to be proud of. The book in Suyu's mind had caused his ambitions to grow. But more of his change was a result of what he had learned from people like Lu Wenyan. He had been happy with knowing 18 languages in the past. He was prepared to take it easy during the 2 months before the entrance examination. But after learning about the world of cultural researchers and geniuses, he was no longer happy with his previous goals. The Skysoar realm was not the end point. It was the starting point. Thus, he had not complained a single time no matter how tired he was during the past month. He knew that he needed to work hard. There were people out there with better background and talent. If he did not work harder to catch up, how could he grow? You changed. Chin Hao mumbled. After Uncle Su left, you changed. Wait, do I need my father to leave so that I can push myself harder? Why don't I leave the family? Suyu was dumbfounded. This was what this fellow got out of all the things he said? Just how did this fellow's brain work? A rotten wood really can't be carved. Suyu cursed. Lu Wenyan had been scolding him like that recently. He rejoiced that Chin Hao wasn't learning from Lu Wenyan as well, or the old man would probably get a heart attack from sheer anger. Chin Hao ignored Suyu and continued mumbling, are you really at the 7th stage and near the 8th stage? That doesn't sound possible. You were still at the 4th stage last month. How did you reach the 7th stage so suddenly? Nothing is impossible. Suyu thought for a bit before explaining, it will be unlikely that you can suddenly become strong. But you can prepare yourself for it. For example, spending 1 extra hour each day to train your martial techniques. That way, you can save a lot of time after you reach the 8th stage. You can also read more. I'm not even going to talk about any other book. Have you even fully grasped the source opening codex? Read it dozens of times each day. Imprint it into your soul. That will make cultivation smoother for you. I have a copy of the source opening codex here. It was written by Teacher Bai. It has grown weaker now, but it's just nice for you. Read it whenever you have the time. If the source opening codex was given to Chin Hao in the beginning, he wouldn't be able to read it as his willpower was too weak. Now that the willpower imprinted in the text was slowly dissipating away, it had weakened enough for Chen Hao to read. Chapter 43, Think More, 2. The text was no longer as effective, but it still contained traces of a Skysoar cultivator's prowess in it. If Chin Hao made good use of it, his progress in the source opening realm would be much smoother. Chin Hao scratched his head anxiously, but at the same time, he was also feeling excited. I'm afraid of reading. I'll doze off the moment I read. Fight it. Suyu opened the door of his home and said flatly, if you can't even treasure the opportunity given to you, then forget your dream of growing strong. Reach the great strength realm and come back to Nanyuan. That will be all you amount to. Don't go to the all-heaven battlefield lest you throw your life away. People unwilling to grab the chance thrown their way are not qualified to talk about growing strong. I don't want to pick up your corpse from the all-heaven battlefield one day in the future. Pa. Chen Hao muttered, if someone is going to be picking up my corpse, it'll be my parents. Su Yu's words were stuck in his throat. There was no helping this fellow. Thank you, Yu. Chen Hao suddenly turned solemn. In a somewhat bleak manner, he said, I'm stupid. I'm not as smart as you. You're right. I'm a rotten wood that can't be carved. You're so smart. You even work harder than me. But like my father said, I probably won't be able to keep up with you even if I try my whole life doing so. In that case, I'll listen to you. From now on, I'll spend 1 extra hour each day practicing martial techniques. I'll also spend 1 extra hour reading. Chen Hao promised, but he was finding it hard to finish his words. Those 2 extra hours would be extremely painful for him. He could still tolerate martial technique practices, but reading was an activity that he felt could kill him. Why not 1.5 hours on martial techniques and half an hour on reading? He asked as he looked at Su Yu with hesitation. Su Yu was feeling more and more helpless as he scolded, brainless brute. Don't waste your breath. Just do the reading at my place. I'll cultivate while watching over you. This will only benefit you. /P. During his cultivation, he would consume blood essence, resulting in a higher density of source qi around him. It would definitely benefit Chen Hao to stay with him while he was cultivating. He could have Chen Hao read outside when he was cultivating in his bedroom. The higher source qi density would help in Chen Hao's acupoint opening. In fact, he was going to consume his drop of source qi liquid soon. At that time, he would be able to gather even more ambient source qi around him. Sure. I'll definitely fall asleep reading alone. That's why you're at the 3rd stage while I'm already at the 8th stage. Su Yu rolled his eyes as he said that. He then entered the bathroom to wash up. While doing so, he said, don't tell anyone I've reached the 7th stage. It's pointless. Also, the next time you see Zhou Cheng talking bad about me, just beat him up. What? Chen Hao blanked out. But Su Yu just said that he wasn't bothered with that matter. Why are you acting all surprised? You're doing so to train your combat strength. Su Yu said righteously, he's a free target practice. A 5th stage source opening cultivator. He's the perfect opponent for you. Whoop his ass. Give him a bloody nose and swollen eyes. Whack him until he shut his mouth. Make him feel fear each time he sees you. Do you want me to personally make a move on him? I'm someone who has killed great strength cultivators before. Do you want me to bully a kid like him? Just beat up anyone who dares to run their mouth at school. Don't be scared of getting beaten. That can be a form of training as well. If you don't even have the courage for that, you should just quit cultivating now. Su Yu was basically talking like Lu Wenyan. It was quite refreshing to not be on the receiving end for once. Chen Hao nodded blankly while muttering, what if it's a girl? Whoop her ass. Su Yu said solemnly, will the battlefield care about your gender? Will the females of the divines and devils not kill? Will they spare you? Just whoop their ass. As long as you leave no lasting damage on them, everything will be fine. Oh. Chen Hao felt like something was off about that logic, but Su Yu sounded so convincing. Even if it's a girl, beat her up as well. Instead of spending her time studying, she's running around gossiping. If you don't beat them up, they'll think that you're afraid. How, man and woman are the same. Just beat up anyone you find talking bad about me. You won't go wrong with that. What if they get the parents involved? What are you afraid of? So what if the parents are involved? Will they dare to lay their hands on you as great strength cultivators? Tell them the school's purpose is to nurture experts. Declare that nobody below the 8th stage source opening realm can beat you. Tell them you will accept all challenges. Tell them to get a 7th stage source opening cultivator to beat you up if they're really so amazing. Also, no matter how badly you're beaten, don't learn from them and go running to your parents. That would be too embarrassing. Su Yu continued urging Chen Hao on, 7th stage source opening cultivators are nothing special. Just be careful and fearless. They might not be able to beat you. After whooping the ass of a 7th stage cultivator as a 3rd stage cultivator, who would still dare to provoke you? What can their parents even do? If the parents dare to bully you, just report it to the principal. It doesn't make sense for an adult to bully a child. Also, your father is a deputy at the traffic department. Which parent would actually dare to touch you? Nobody will take fights between children seriously. Chen Hao nodded repeatedly. The more he listened, the more sense Su Yu made. Then, I'll start kicking asses tomorrow? Yes. Whoop Joe Chang's ass first. After the beating, make a public declaration challenging anyone that are unhappy with you. They might really deliver themselves to you. This is a good opportunity for you to get some combat experience. This is free training, understand? Finally, Suyu was done bathing. After putting his clothes on, he walked out of the bathroom and said, "Come on. Let's eat. Remember, don't tell your father this is my idea. Just say that you want to grow strong. Otherwise, your father will come looking for me. A good cultivator should never trouble their friend. Don't worry. I won't tell him." Chen Hao patted his chest as he promised. He was already a man. He wasn't a kid that would go running to his parents at the first sign of trouble. Suyu gave Chen Hao a thumbs up and said, "By the way, before you start fighting, remember to get an instructor to watch over you. You kids might not know when to stop. If the instructor asks, just say that you're training. The school won't stop you. All right. Also, before beating up a girl, remember to loudly shout that man and woman are both cultivators. Emphasize that you're not bullying a girl. Tell them to shut up and stop gossiping if they don't have the balls to fight you. Remember to do all that before fighting. It won't be a good look if a girl starts crying after being beaten by you. Okay. I won't forget that. Remember, when fighting a girl, don't hit her face. That would be too harsh. Okay. What else? Yes. Do not tell anyone that I taught you all this. I won't. Don't worry. After a while, they arrived at the Chen family's residence. After the long talk, Chen Hao felt enlightened. He was starting to get impatient. From tomorrow onward, he would begin combat training. He was going to punch his way through the Nanyuan Secondary School. There were so many free training partners waiting for him there. According to you, hiring a single training partner would cost $100 per hour. If he could spend 3 hours fighting in the school each day, that would be the same as earning $300 per day. And over the period of 1 month, he would earn at least $10,000. At that time, he could just pretend that the savings he gave Suyu had all been spent on combat practice. He thought to himself that Suyu was indeed the smart one. Suyu had always been good with numbers. Chen family's residence. This was an apartment unit with 4 bedrooms and 2 living rooms. It was located in a different neighborhood than Suyu's home. However, it wasn't too far away. That was why Chen Hao could be frequently seen below Suyu's home. Their homes weren't that far from each other. In fact, a few years ago, the two actually resided in the same neighborhood. After Chen Hao's father, Qin Qinghe, obtained a promotion, he bought a larger unit in a different neighborhood nearby. The moment Suyu walked through the door, Qin Qinghe, who was busy watching television, stood up and laughed heartily before saying, You're here. Come, take a seat. Dinner will be ready soon. It has been a while since I last saw you. Uncle Chen. Is Aunt Chen in the kitchen? Chen Hao's mother spoke from the kitchen. You, just watch some television for now. Dinner will be ready soon. I'm making your favorite red braised pork today. Suyu thanked her with a smile. In truth, there was a time when he was slightly tired of eating red braised pork as his father had cooked too much of that dish. But now that his father wasn't around, he was starting to miss it. After Suyu sat down, Chen Hao wanted to sit down as well. When Qin Qinghe saw that, the smile vanished from his face as he berated, Go serve our guest some tea. Where is your etiquette? Chen Hao left to get tea while mumbling unhappily. After Chen Hao left, Qin Qinghe's face turned friendly again as he said, Thank you for your help. Hao isn't too good with his brain. Falsely claiming a kill is a major offense. If it was anyone else, we wouldn't have claimed the kill. But you and Hao grew up together and that was your idea, so I'm not worried that something bad will happen. You've been smart since you were young. You're much smarter than your father and me. Suyu softly said, Uncle Chen, there won't be any issue with that. But I'm worried. I don't know if it's the right choice to help Hao enter a war academy. Qin Qinghe sighed and shook his head. I thought of that before. But when I think more, I doubt I can stop him. You know him. He's too stubborn. Since he wants to join a war academy, he will join a weaker war academy even if he fails to join the Great Xiao War Academy. Rather than letting him join a weak academy, we might as well let him join a better one. At least he will see more opportunities there. Qin Qinghe looked at Suyu and solemnly said, I've been wanting to invite you to a meal for a while. I want to thank you, but at the same time, I also have a favor to ask from you. You'll definitely be going to the capital. You won't be in the same academy as Hao, but I believe that you will definitely do better there. On the battlefield, you will eventually become a commander while Hao will be a cannon fodder. I'm begging you to take care of him when the time comes. Suyu hastily said, don't worry, Uncle Chen. I'll naturally do that. We have been friends for so many years. Qin Qinghe waved his hand and sighed again before saying, helping one or twice is fine, but if you have to keep doing so, no friendship will be strong enough to endure that. In the end, Hao still needs to rely on himself. If he's really without any talent, he can return to Nanyuan after graduation. It's actually quite good over here. And if he's even slightly capable, growing to a point where he won't be a burden for you, he can be your follower. Uncle Chen, you're too. Suyu was about to say something when Qin Qinghe interrupted him. He won't be able to be more than a follower. Whose follower he becomes will be very important. That fellow isn't too smart. If he follows someone else, he might really be thrown aside like some cannon fodder one day, dying without even knowing what's happening. It's a cruel world out there. The myriad races can harm humans. But humans can also harm their fellow humans as well. Qin Qinghe had a bleak tone. I can only entrust him to you. You're at the same age, but I don't need to worry about you. How is different? I have been trying to teach him to be smarter, but I failed. Suyu had nothing to say. He could only nod. At that point, Qin Hao finally returned with a cup of tea. With a hearty laugh, he said, Dad, what are you talking about? Qin Qinghe glanced at Qin Hao and grumbled, we're talking about how stupid you are, wondering when you'll grow up. Qin Hao shut his mouth sullenly. How I wish you're a girl. If that's the case, I can tell Su Long to marry you over to you. Unfortunately, you're a boy with a big body and a small brain. Hearing that, Chen Hao grimaced while Suyu shivered. He started imagining Qin Hao as his wife, and he erased the thought immediately. That was too scary a thought to even entertain. After a short while, Mother Qin was finally done cooking. With the dishes served, they all sat around the dining table. Chapter 44, 3 Targets. This wasn't Suyu's first time eating at Chen Hao's place, so he wasn't shy. It had been quite a while since he last had any proper food, so he ate to his heart's content. After the meal and a short chat with the Qin family, he took his leave. He had just stepped through the door when Qin Qinghe appeared with a case in hand. He pushed it into Suyu's hands and softly said, take this. This isn't for what you did to help Hao with the cult member. He will repay you for that himself. This is my gift to thank you for the care you're going to show my son in the future. I might not sound like I'm worried, but I'm really afraid that one random day, I'll receive news that my son is dead. I can only beg for your help. Suyu had a complicated feeling. Chen Qinghao was a deputy head of the city's traffic department, a great strength cultivator, and a soon-to-be head of the traffic department. But for the sake of his son, he was lowering himself before a kid like Suyu. Suyu was only a source-opening cultivator. Sure, he was going to join a cultural research academy, but he didn't understand why Qin Qinghe had so much faith in him. After thinking about it, he decided to accept the case. Before long, Suyu was on his way home. After he left, Chen Hao said, Dad, why were you so courteous toward you today? That feels so awkward. What do you know? Chen Qinghe couldn't even be bothered to explain himself. Chen Hao was not satisfied. He said, what do I not know? I've known you for so many years. We're close enough that he'll lend me a hand even if you haven't asked for his help. Helping you once or twice can be attributed to your friendship. If he helps you 3 or 4 times, that would be due to his kindness. But more than that would ruin your relationship. Qin Qinghe's face fell as he said, with how you're behaving, it's only a matter of time before you get yourself in trouble. What if that keeps happening? Suyu isn't your father. Why should he keep doing so? Eventually, you'll find your friendship declining. Will you be shameless enough to keep sticking to him then? Dad, you look down on me too much. You're right. Chen Qinghe did not deny that. If you're really going to the capital, keep to yourself and focus on cultivating. Don't create trouble. Don't bother Suyu if there is nothing important. Only ask for his help if there is really something you can't solve. Yu is also going there as a student. It's not like he's going there to become a big official or something. Chen Qingyi sighed, can the two of you be the same? Even ignoring the fact that he's smarter than you, who is Lu Wenyan? He is a Skysor cultural researcher. He has an extensive network in the Great Xia Cultural Research Academy. He has high expectations of Suyu, so things will be different for Suyu there. There's also a person called Bai Feng that was here in Nanyuan for a bit. I asked around and found that he's an assistant researcher. Recently, he's aiming to break through into the 7th stage Skysor realm. Before leaving Nanyuan, he told Suyu to look for him in the academy. Commander Zhang from the city guards and the others were there to hear that. Do you know what that means? That means he looks highly on Suyu as well. As for you, why hadn't you grabbed the opportunity when it was before you? Suyu will benefit from Lu Wenyan's network in the academy. He will also obtain by Feng's care. He is smart. After a few years, when you're still a regular soldier, he might have grown into a big shot already. Don't forget about Su Long as well. Yes, he's a great strength cultivator, but he's a veteran of the devil-subduing army. I'm nothing like him. Qin Qinghe sighed. What is the devil-subduing army? That is the army led by the prefect back then. A few of the current 1,000-man commanders in the martial dragon guards are from the devil-subduing army. Su Long might not be a big deal, but he is still someone from the army and can be considered their comrade in arms. More than half of the higher-ups in the martial dragon guards and the Great Xia army came from the devil-subduing army. As long as Suyu isn't a fool, he can use that as the pretext to get the two powerful forces as his backer. Qin Hao blanked out. Will that really work? Dad, Uncle Su is only a great strength cultivator. Does he even know those big shots? It's not the issue of knowing or not knowing them. Chen Qinghe shot his son an unhappy glare and said, you don't understand the military. If Suyu really asks for their help, after telling them that his father is a member of the devil-subduing army, a veteran that has returned from retirement, the folks in the military will instantly find him more agreeable. The military is famous for how protective they are of their own. They will at least make sure that nobody can bully Suyu. They probably won't give him that big of a help, but with them around, nobody in the capital can bully him. If things get too troublesome, even the prefect might personally get involved. That had happened before. Chen Qinghe stopped at that. He had indeed heard of something like that happening before. Xia Longgu was known as the iron-blooded war god. He greatly valued his fellow soldiers. That was especially true for the batch of veterans that had fought under him 20 years ago. A lot of the people from back then were now occupying high positions in the martial dragon guards and Great Xia army. It was a pity that Su Long had retired back then. Otherwise, if he managed to survive until today, he would have gotten a rather high position as well. Furthermore, Su Long was a tad bit too weak. If he was at the infinite strength realm, he would have definitely been accepted into the martial dragon guards. Compared with Su Yu, Chen Hao would be completely alone in the capital. Qin Qinghe was no Su Long. He was a big deal in Nanyuan, but nobody knew him in the capital. At one point, Chen Hao became utterly confused, so he decided to stop thinking. He only muttered that Uncle Su was incredible and returned to his room. Chen Qinghe was speechless. He could guess what his son was thinking. His son must be asking why his father wasn't a devil-subduing army veteran as well. That was most definitely what that kid was thinking right now. Su family's residence. After returning home, Suyu opened the case he got from Qin Qinghe. His expression changed the moment he saw the contents in the case. The case wasn't small, and there were multiple items in it. A few small bottles could be seen in the case. There was also a single bone fragment there. Unlike the previous incomplete bone fragment he saw, this was a complete bone fragment. Is this an original text of a myriad race cultivation method? Suyu was stunned. He also saw that there were 3 bottles in the case. When he opened them, he found a drop of source chi liquid in each bottle. How generous. Suyu was stunned. 3 drops of source chi liquid had a market price of 300,000. Even more valuable was the original myriad race cultivation method. Even if it was only a great strength cultivation method, it was still incredibly valuable. The bone fragment Suyu had gotten from Bai Feng was incomplete. It was only 1/3 of the full copy, yet it was considered a treasure. Even Lu Yu coveted it. This wasn't something you could buy with just money. Merit points were required as well. Suyu was no longer a clueless child, so he knew all that. Also, these original texts couldn't be purchased in Nanyuan Secondary School. They were only available for purchase in the capital. A single great strength original text, whether it was a cultivation method or martial technique, and regardless of which race it originated from, would have a price tag of no less than 30 merit points. The original texts of the divines or devils would be even more expensive. Suyu knew that this wouldn't be a cheap gift. But he had not expected this. He even suspected that Chen Qinghe had used all the merit points he had saved over the years to purchase that single original text. Suyu did not know what to say. 300,000. As a deputy head of the traffic department, Qin Qinghe had definitely earned more than his father, but it also wouldn't be easy for him to gather 30 merit points. People like Chen Qinghe would only earn around 5 to 10 merit points per year. Suyu did not know how much merit points Qin Qinghe had spent for the gift, but the contents in the case were probably worth about 6 to 7 years of Qin Qinghe's total income. His salary, employment benefits, and rewards had all been spent on the contents of the case. Uncle Chen is overestimating me too much. Su Yu felt helpless. He understood that this gift was a form of investment for Chen Qinghe. Naturally, the investment was made on behalf of Qin Hao. Qin Qinghe hoped that Su Yu would take care of Qin Hao after achieving something for himself in the capital. And Chen Qinghao had held nothing back. He wasn't even aware that Bai Feng had accepted Su Yu as a student in advance. He also wasn't aware that Su Yu had already reached the 7th stage. Just based on what he knew of Su Yu from before, he had prepared such valuable gifts without worrying that he would waste his effort. Sigh. Su Yu sighed. Qin Qinghe did all that for his son. Hao was probably unaware of that. And if he did find out, well, that fellow would probably come and ask for some of the stuff from Su Yu. Su Yu knew very well that Uncle Chen would not take the gifts back even if he insisted on returning them. After giving it some thought, he decided to keep them. The original myriad race cultivation method was something Qin Qinghe didn't have a need for. He could only have purchased it for Su Yu. He had probably asked around a lot before knowing what to buy. As for the 3 drops of source chi liquid, after some thought, Su Yu concluded that he might not need all of them. He still had a drop on him. He would also earn 3 drops from the War Academy examination. Yes, he was already viewing the examination reward as his personal belonging. Source Chi liquid would be helpful during the source opening realm. It was also useful during the great strength realm, but it wouldn't be as effective anymore. Su Yu was already a 7th stage source opening cultivator. He probably wouldn't need that many drops of source Chi liquid. I'll just let Hao use it when he cultivates at my place. Looks like I've only gotten richer after Dad left. Su Yu was somewhat speechless. His dad had left over 300,000 behind. Su Yu had thought that he would go bankrupt when he first started buying blood essence. But instead, he was getting richer and richer. Onping dollars and gold coins worth 300,000, 4 drops of source chi liquid, 1 complete great strength original text, 1 incomplete great strength original text, 2 drops of blood essence, and 13 merit points. The merit points included the 1 point he had earned earlier in the day and the 2 points he had earned a few days ago when helping the Wind Catcher Department capture a myriad race cult member. After some calculation, Su Yu found that he had turned into a rich man. Well, since I'm rich, time to share the wealth with my little bro. Su Yu smiled. The 2 drops of blood essence he had obtained as his spoils of war did not belong to iron-winged birds. He did not consume them rashly and had been keeping them around to be absorbed by his blood character. The divine character couldn't absorb much each time, but it could take its time and slowly grow. My next goal is to kill a middle-stage great strength cult member for my graduation exam and enter the 8th stage source opening realm. As for my willpower, I'll try to reach 20% as soon as possible. Those would be Su Yu's goals before the academy entrance examinations. There were less than 24 days before the examinations. He was confident he would be able to achieve all 3 of his goals. Chapter 45. The name comes before the man. 1. Su Yu was cultivating hard to achieve his 3 goals. At the same time, Great Xia Cultural Research Academy. This was an incomparably massive academy. Pavilions spread as far as the eye could see. Commerce District, Residential District, Education District, Grotto District, Social District, and so on split the massive academy into various sections. The academy was basically a small city. /P. Enrollment Center. Bai Feng had just finished his secluded cultivation session. For the first time in a month, he left his home to take in some fresh air outside. He walked into the enrollment center in an unhurried manner. It was still not the enrollment season, but this place was already getting busy. After all, the entrance examinations in the various cities were starting soon. Old Zhou, do me a favor. That's my nephew. I'll teach him myself after he's accepted into the academy. He is pretty good at the myriad languages. He is also quite talented in divine characters. His willpower is decent as well. You only need to be slightly lenient to him during the exam. No. A middle-aged man berated, even if you're going to teach him yourself, we still can't do that. If he can't even get through the entrance exam with his own abilities, it doesn't matter whose nephew he is. He can't be accepted. Old Zhou, you're clearly trying to make things hard for me. Don't try that on me. We have the records from Tianfeng City. Your nephew has spent 5 years in his secondary school to master only 3 languages. Am I right? Who are you trying to trick? He's untalented. Accepting him will be a waste of resources. If you can't accept that, feel free to go back home and teach him yourself. You. What? Are you going to beat me up? What? You're only a junior researcher. You dare raise your voice against an intermediate researcher like me? The place was bustling with noise. Bai Feng shook his head. This was probably the noisiest place in the entire academy. Some were here to get someone into the academy through a back door. Some were here to snatch the new genius students. Not just anyone could maintain order at a place like this. Bai Feng did not bother going near the arguing duo. He looked for a shorter line and waited for a short while before it was his turn. Check Su Yu from Nanyuan Secondary School. See if there are any updates on his profile. When the young woman at the counter saw that it was Bai Feng, she blushed and hastily said, "Working on it, Assistant Bai." Bai Feng had a smile on his face, but inwardly, he thought, this girl doesn't know what she's doing. I will choose a different counter next time. He was unhappy that she had addressed him as Assistant Bai. Couldn't she have called him Researcher Bai? Su Yu, final year student at Nanyuan Secondary School, certified for 18 languages, 5th stage source opening realm, 21 original earned merit points, recommended by instructor Liu of Nanyuan. With a comprehensive grade of 300 marks, he has a middle-low rating. Middle-low? Bai Feng nodded. That was the grading given internally by the academy. In comparison with the students of the various cities, this wasn't a good rating, but it also wasn't a bad one. For this year's exam, 200 marks would be enough for him to join the academy, right? The woman hurriedly said, "We're still unsure. But according to past trends, that should be sufficient. One certified language would grant a student 10 marks. At 3rd stage source opening realm and below, one would earn 10 marks per stage. From the 3rd to the 5th stage, one would earn 30 marks per stage. Excluding the merit points awarded for certified languages, the remaining merit points would grant 10 marks per point. With a comprehensive grade of 300 marks, Su Yu wouldn't have any issue entering the academy. Of course, they wouldn't tell the students about the grading system. And if these recommended students were to somehow fail their first entrance examination, they would be given a second chance in case the first fail was due to some unexpected accident. That was the benefit of having this recommendation system in place. Generally, someone at the 3rd stage source opening realm with 17 languages mastered was guaranteed to pass the examination. Some students with more merit points would have the requirements lowered, such as passing with only 15 languages mastered. Or perhaps one had a higher cultivation level, such as reaching the 4th stage source opening realm. That person would be able to get through the examination by mastering only 14 languages. Thus, as a 3rd stage source opening cultivator who had mastered 18 languages, Su Yu was guaranteed entry into the academy. That was why he was considered a genius at Nanyuan. Previously, he had a low rating. That signified that he wouldn't be taken by any researcher as a student after entering the academy. With a new rating of middle-low, he could now be considered decent. If he was lucky, he could even attract the attention of a researcher and be recruited as a helper. After a short silence, Bai Feng said, "Put Su Yu under me. I have 2 personal student openings, right? Give him 1. What? The woman exclaimed in shock. She hastily said, "Assistant Bai, he only has a middle-low rating. Is there a problem with that?" Bai Feng smiled, "That is good enough. He comes recommended by Nanyuan and instructor Liu Wenyan is my martial uncle. Is there a problem with me accepting someone as my personal student?" No. The woman was getting anxious. A middle-low student could be good enough for others, but for someone like Bai Feng, it would be too much of a waste for the limited openings he had. Assistant Bai, before becoming a full researcher, you can accept no more than 2 personal students. Su Yu has yet to enter the academy and has a rating of middle-low. It won't benefit you much to accept him. Thank you. I know. Give him the opening. Bai Feng had the same smile on his face as this woman was advising him out of kindness. However, he did not need any advice on this matter. Then, the woman felt regretful. But Bai Feng was the one accepting a student. There really wasn't anything she could do about it. Just as she was about to get started with the paperwork, a smiling individual walked over and said, "Bai Feng, you're accepting a newcomer as your personal student instead of someone already in the academy? And you're accepting someone with a middle-low rating? What are you thinking? This year, we have a lot of new students rated high. There are even a few high students in the list. And during the examination, even more might appear." Bai Feng turned his head to look at the newcomer. A frown formed on his face. He was prepared to keep a low profile and leave after getting the job done. But this fellow was here creating trouble again. "Lu Hong, I'm the one accepting a student here. That has nothing to do with you." About 5 meters away was a young man standing with his arms crossed. With a smile on his face, the young man said, "That's right. But, I enjoy watching a good show. Shut your mouth if it has nothing to do with you. Bai Feng couldn't be bothered to waste more time on that person. He turned to look at the woman at the counter and asked, "Are you done with the registration?" "Yes, Assistant Bai Feng." Seeing that Bai Feng was ignoring him, Lu Hong said, "Are you really going to accept a freshie as your personal student? That has nothing to do with you." Bai Feng started leaving. With a frown, Lu Hong said, "Yes, it has nothing to do with me. But have you thought of how many people you will offend by accepting this person as your personal student?" Bai Feng looked at Lu Hong with his brows furrowed. "Last year, my younger brother tried to become your personal student. You refused. Fine. You have yet to accept any student. Maybe you're waiting for a student with high rating. I understand that. My younger brother is not capable enough. But now, you're accepting a middle-low student? Bai Feng, how do you think my younger brother will take it? How will my family take it?" Bai Feng sneered, "And that concerns me how?" "You're right, Bai Feng. That does not concern you." Lu Hong solemnly said, "I don't mind either. It doesn't even matter how my family takes it. But my younger brother wasn't the only one who had tried becoming your student. Even high students have been rejected by you before. Now, you're accepting a middle-low student. What will they think? Yes, all that won't concern you either. But have you considered this? You're making enemies for that new student. Others will question the fact that they were rejected while a mediocre student is accepted. Is he better than them? Or is there a different reason?" Bai Feng was indifferent. "So? Nothing. It's fine for you to accept him. You still have one more opening. That one student will attract too much attention alone. Why don't you accept another student? Your younger brother? Of course not. He has already been accepted by researcher who. I recommend Wu Qi's younger sister. She has a high middle rating. That's pretty good. We never mentioned her to you since you have never been interested in accepting students before. Since that's changing this year, you might as well accept another student. What do you think?" "What do I think? I think you can piss off." Bai Feng said impatiently, "So what if she is a high middle student? What do I care about Wu Qi? Am I supposed to be impressed because she's Wu Qi's younger sister? I will accept whoever I want. And if you people are unhappy, feel free to create trouble for the new student. As long as you don't kill or cripple him, suppress him however you want." Bai Feng was completely indifferent. Suppressing Suyu? If they could, feel free to do it. Who I accept as my student is none of your business. Piss off, Lu Hong. Don't bother trying to act all friendly to me. My words apply to you, to Wu Qi, and to everyone else. Go accept those students yourself instead of trying to send them my way. If you keep bothering me, don't blame me for being impolite. Bai Feng was speaking quite loudly. He had wanted to keep a low profile, but with Lu Hong's disturbance, he had attracted quite a lot of attention. He was very straightforward as he loudly said, "I can accept whoever I want as my student. Even if it's a cripple, so long as he can get through the entrance exam, I'll still accept him if I want. Are you trying to tell me what to do? Don't bother playing those stupid tricks on me." Leaving those words behind, Bai Feng left. The room sank into a short silence before sounds of discussion erupted. Bai Feng is accepting a student? What is he thinking? He has rejected many people during the past 2 years. Why is he suddenly changing his mind this year? I heard it's a student recommended by Lu Wenyan. Lu Wenyan has recommended quite a lot of students before. Bai Feng never cared. I'm not sure. But after what happened here spreads, he will encounter a lot of troubles. After all, many people are paying close attention to Senior Hong. There's also a lot of little fellows keeping their eyes on Bai Feng. The competition for the slots 3 years later, Bai Feng will definitely get involved in it. Also, he will also be fighting for the limited positions of full researcher promotion. An old man smiled. What is this kid trying to do? A lot of people are wondering about that. Nobody will ignore the fact that he's suddenly accepting a student. Also, Senior Hong has quite a lot of valuable stuff. Everyone is eyeing what he has. True. Someone laughed. This is good. A good show will unfold. The academy has been peaceful for way too long. The competition for the slots 7 years ago had caused quite a big ruckus. This competition only happens once every 10 years. I was thinking that the show will only start in 1 or 2 years. But it looks like the show is going to start early this time. Great Xia only has 20 slots in total. Our academy will only be able to get 5 or 6 of them. Bai Feng will meet a lot of competitors. Let's see if he can hold them off. He's a 7th stage skysoar. He will be able to handle it. Nah, nothing is absolute. Also, those little fellows aren't simple individuals either. The next competition might be even more intense than before. One person after another spoke out. Staring at the departing Bai Feng, Lu Hong remained silent. After thinking about it, he went to the counter and asked for Su Yu's records. Chapter 46. The name comes before the man, too. A short while later, Lu Hong entered a small villa in the residential district. Wu Qi, Bai Feng is accepting a student this year. A young woman was writing a divine character with a pen. Without looking up, she said, so be it. Why would I care? He's accepting a middle-low student. I suggested your younger sister, and he told me to piss off. This fellow is already a 7th stage skysoar. He is getting even more arrogant than before. He has always been arrogant. Wu Qi was still indifferent. Apart from that period of time a few years ago after he was beaten up by that fellow from the War Academy, he has never stopped being arrogant. At the mention of that incident, Wu Qi smiled. I'm still waiting for the show to start. A few years later, when he finally reaches the 9th stage, he will definitely go get his revenge. That person better not enter the Cloud Breach realm too fast or the show will end prematurely. Lu Hong said, that's not the point. He's accepting a student. This is a good opportunity. Senior Hong is very hard to meet. His research center is firmly under Bai Feng's control. If we can get Bai Feng to accept one of our people as his student, that research center alone will be lucrative enough to satisfy all of us. Huh? Wu Qi finally looked up. Her eyes turned cold as she said, piss off. Wu Qi, you, piss off. She snorted with contempt in her eyes. I am Wu Qi. I do not need to play these tricks to get what I want. Bai Feng is not my match. Regardless of whether it's the full researcher promotion exam or the competition 3 years later, I'll be present in both. Lu Hong, stop playing your tricks around me. You might not like the consequences. Lu Hong clenched his fists and said, if I'm really playing tricks with you, I won't be here to see you. Fight for opportunities. Fight for fortune. I don't care how others see me or know what I do. None of that matters. I have the right to fight for the opportunity when it is before me. Bai Feng controls Senior Hong's research center. I want to fight for that. Even Senior Hong won't stop me from doing so. If I win, that will only prove that I'm better than Bai Feng. There is no denying that. Wu Qi, do you look down on someone exercising his right to pursue a better station in life? Wu Qi looked up once again. You're right. It is your right to do so. But, how does that concern me? Don't you wish to get better support and a better future for your younger sister? In that case, that will be between me and Bai Feng. I don't need you to get involved in my business. It's pointless. He won't be moved by either force or persuasion. We have to make sure he has no choice but to do so, and you alone won't be able to accomplish that. Wu Qi stared at Lu Hong for a while before saying, if you want my help, sure. As a payment, you need to let me study your force character for 3 months. Lu Hong clenched his teeth in anger and said, that's too much. Not at all. If you disagree, feel free to go at it alone. I'm not interested in these stupid games. You're not even at the 7th stage, so you won't be qualified to get involved in the competition and researcher promotion anyway. Lu Hong took a deep breath and made up his mind, fine. Wu Qi smiled, tell me. What do you intend to do? Simple. Reduce Bai Feng's authority. Huh? If his student fails 3 monthly exams, ranks low in the seasonal exams and the yearly exams, Bai Feng will lose 300 points in 1 year. With that, his authority will drop 1 level. And in 3 years, he will no longer be qualified to take part in that competition. We don't even need 3 years. A year later, I'll be able to apply for control over Senior Hong's research center. At that time, with a lower level of authority, Bai Feng won't be able to stop me even if he's Senior Hong's personal student. After all, the research center was still made with the academy's money. It would be Bai Feng's fault for losing the research center. At that time, he will have no choice but to accept a new student to raise his authority. And he would need an outstanding student for that. If we prepare well, he will have no choice but to pick one of our own. And since he has to pick an outstanding student, there is only one or a few options. What do you think he will do? Lu Hong continued, this is an open conspiracy. He was the one who had declared that we can do whatever we want. In that case, why should I be pulling my punches? Wu Qi shot him a glance before looking back down at the divine character she was writing. After a short while, she said, that's a cheap scheme, but it should work well. So would my role in all this be protection against Bai Feng's revenge? Yes. That fellow is too arrogant. If he really suffers a loss, he won't take it silently. I'm worried that he will make a move on me and seriously injure me, forcing me to withdraw from all competitions in the academy. Yes, that does sound like something he would do. Wu Qi smiled. At least you're self-aware enough to know that he's better than you. If I'm the one making the decision, I would have told you to give up on competing against him. But you're also right that this is a good opportunity for you. Even if he's making a move on you, it will be an honorable challenge instead of some dirty schemes. How about this? If he challenges you, I'll challenge and injure him before he can face you. Agreed. Lu Hong was overjoyed. That was exactly what he wanted. The stronger individuals in the academy weren't interested in a minor conflict like this. As for the weaker ones, they were unqualified to even get involved. As for the cloud breach experts, those were all the higher-ups of the academy. Senior Hong wouldn't sit around and watch as those people get involved in a conflict between juniors. By the way, if Bai Feng's student keeps failing his exams, Bai Feng will definitely be forced to accept another student to increase his evaluation. If my younger sister really ends up as his student, she will definitely do her best to help her teacher. I won't have my sister hold back for your scheme. That will only ruin her future. Of course. Lu Hong smiled. The more outstanding your sister is, the better it is. That will only cause Bai Feng to pour more of his resources to her. That is how things are done and nobody can change that. As a result, the other student will keep falling behind and continue lowering Bai Feng's evaluation. Even if your sister can pull Bai Feng's evaluation up, it won't be enough. Bai Feng will not be able to escape dropping a level. Wu Qi nodded in agreement. While the two were discussing, Bai Feng was walking around in the academy. A smile suddenly formed on his face as he said, "Bunch of fools. Trying to reduce my authority?" He wasn't there to hear the discussion, but he could guess what Lu Hong was trying to do. Well, that would be an interesting show to watch. Bai Feng muttered to himself before shaking his head. Su Yu would probably encounter a lot of trouble after entering the academy. But that could be good as well. How could an unpolished gem shine? Without any suppression, how would that kid understand that the academy was filled with geniuses? How would he understand that he wasn't that special? Completing a divine character in one day, I really hope Lu Hong can help me suppress that kid for a bit. Otherwise, it will be hard to stop the kid from getting too full of himself. But Lu Hong is an idiot. He won't end up sending fools over to be humiliated by that kid, right? Bai Feng laughed and shook his head. If that really happened, well, it had nothing to do with him. Wu Qi, Xia Yuan. Muttering the two new names, Bai Feng had completely forgotten about Lu Hong. That fellow was not even at the 7th stage Skyso realm. He couldn't be bothered to pay much attention to someone like that. The two names he mentioned were his actual competitors in the academy. Even before this, when he was still at the 6th stage Skyso realm, he had never considered Lu Hong a threat. Su Yu. Finally, Bai Feng mentioned Su Yu's name. This kid better not disappoint me. He needs to surpass and suppress the students of those fellows. Only then would I be able to get promoted into a full researcher earlier and become a team leader. There were still too many limitations for an assistant researcher. Without sufficient authority, there were many places he wasn't allowed to visit. Nanyuan. The secondary school had been in a mess for the past few days. Chen Hao had broken through into the 4th stage source opening realm. He then challenged the 5th stage source opening realm Zhou Chong. There actually wasn't much difference between the two. With their cultivation levels, they were basically the same as a normal person. Zhou Chong had a higher cultivation level, but he was beaten until he cried. That wasn't the end of it. Chen Hao was not satisfied with beating Zhou Chong alone. He continued looking for more people to fight. On the first day, he fought 10 different students. He won some and he lost some, but he didn't care. He treated all the fights as training. In 3 days, he got into over 30 fights. If he hadn't been forced to take a sick leave by his mother due to the bruises on his face, he would probably continue fighting. But even though Chen Hao was absent from school, he had started a new trend. In the past, everyone believed that those at the 4th stage source opening realm were incredible while those at the 5th stage were akin to the stars in the sky. But now, all those amazing individuals were merely people that had been whacked by Chen Hao. That opened a brand new world to the students in the school. Some of the students that were bully victims of the more talented students started stirring. Thus, on the day Chen Hao was absent, even more fights broke out in the school. There were quite a lot of students eager to challenge the so-called talented students. Zhou Chong, in particular, was someone who had provoked many people in the past with his rude mouth. But since he was known as a genius, most people could only endure in silence. But on that day, no less than 7 of them had stepped forth to challenge Zhou Chong. The result of those fights didn't matter. They had still managed to hurt Zhou Chong. So many bruises were left on his face that unless one was very familiar with him, one wouldn't even be able to recognize him. This is ridiculous. In the office, Lu Wenyan shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He was able to instantly guess whose idea that was. Chen Hao was a simple and honest student. Without someone inciting him, he wouldn't challenge Zhou Chong for no reason. Clearly, that was Su Yu's handiwork. Beside him, the principal was stroking his beard really hard. He seemed to be doing that a lot recently. With a sigh, the principal lamented, "These kids sure are energetic. The exams are near. Why aren't they stopping? A few fights here and there is fine, as that will give them more passion in cultivation." But the principal felt like crying. Why are they beating up girls as well? I'm worried about the future of these kids. There have never been too many girls in war academies. If these kids bring this habit with them to the academies, are they going to stay single forever? Lu Wenyan trembled as he realized how serious this problem was. Chen Hao needs to have his ass hooped. Lu Wenyan was starting to get anxious as well. What were they to do with this batch of students? Every single one of them was running around shouting that men and women are equal on the battlefield. What the fuck was that? How were they supposed to find a wife in the future? Were the male students of this batch going to stay single for life? The principal sighed in desperation. This trend is influencing more than the students of this batch. Their juniors are all watching. There are a lot of children between 11 and 12 in the school. I'm hearing news that even these boys are getting ready to challenge the girls in their classes. Are they stupid? Lu Wenyan was speechless. No. Apparently they heard from their seniors that only by beating girls can they temper their fortitude. Beating girls can help them improve in their cultivation. Lu Wenyan looked at the principal. The principal looked at him. A dispirited expression covered both their faces. They couldn't go around spreading those words. If this continued, in a few years, the entire Nanyuan secondary school would be turned into some sort of temple filled with monks who had taken vows of chastity. That was too scary. And the moment that reputation spread, to the point even those in the capital learned of it, how were Nanyuan students supposed to get girlfriends in the capital? What the hell were those kids thinking? The principal sighed yet again and said, "We'll see what we can do after sending this batch of students off. Old Lu, let's move on. Did you hear the news from the Great Siak Cultural Research Academy?" As the best secondary school in Nanyuan, they naturally had some connections to the various academies. Thus, they were able to obtain certain news before other schools. Furthermore, there were also some Nanyuan secondary school alumni in the various academies. All those people formed a reliable network of information for the principal. Lu Wenyan nodded and indifferently said, "That's normal. Seems like they haven't changed. The issue is not Su Yu. It's Bai Feng. That fellow has recently broken through into the 7th stage Skysoar realm. The people there are feeling more and more threatened by him. Previously, he might be outstanding as a 6th stage Skysoar cultivator, but there are still at least 8 people with the same cultivation level in the same age group in the academy. There are even a few late-stage Skysoar cultivators there. People were even questioning his qualification to be ranked in the top 10. But now that he has broken through, he is starting to catch a lot more attention than before. Bai Feng accepting a student would not have caused such a big ruckus previously. Sure, he would still attract some attention, but it wouldn't be such a big deal. But he had reached the 7th stage. He had only advanced by a single stage, but that single stage signified that he would no longer meet any bottlenecks until the 9th stage. That immediately placed him in the top 5 of the academy. Naturally, that ranking only included his peers, not the old-timers of the academy. Chapter 47, Big Spender. The principal was worried. Would this affect Su Yu? I heard that each time that competition draws near, things will grow intense there. Even the war academies will get involved. Some people have even lost their lives in the competition. It is very rare for someone to actually die from it. Lu Wenyan knew more than the principal. He explained, the big shots are all keeping watch. Scenarios where lives were lost were mostly accidents. Even if they were mostly accidents, the danger still exists. The principal was extremely worried. Su Yu is just a normal secondary school student. For him to get engulfed in all that, should he change his target and join a war academy instead? He's already a 7th stage source opening cultivator. That's good enough to join a war academy. What do you think? That is unacceptable. Lu Wenyan frowned. Even if he can achieve something in a war academy, he won't achieve more than what he could in a cultural research academy. This is merely his first trial. If he gets through it, he will go further, faster, and higher. Old Lu, he's only 18. He knows nothing. Lu Wenyan firmly said, he can learn. Nobody's born knowing everything. Su Yu is a tenacious kid. Little setbacks won't stop him. And if he manages to get through the trial, he will grow into one of the most outstanding students they have ever seen. You see this as a danger. I see this as an opportunity. A regular student will probably need at least 5 years in the academy before getting the chance to be involved in something like this. But now, he will be able to get involved with the best the academy has to offer right after joining. This will only be helpful for his future. As for the danger, it might not be too bad, Lu Wenyan said. Among the younger generation, Bai Feng is no pushover. His teacher is also one of the few top experts among the academy's senior researchers. In fact, Su Yu will have a rather high starting point there. That will only make it easier for him to go further and higher in the future. Also, Su Yu's isn't worse than the other geniuses. Lu Wenyan smiled, we have yet to update Su Yu's information with the academy. We will maintain his profile at 5th stage source opening realm and 18 languages mastered. Let him hold back and catch them all by surprise after entering the academy. Seeing that Lu Wenyan had reached a decision, the principal stopped advising him to change his mind. Instead, the principal said, do you think he'll be able to reach the 8th stage source opening realm? Recently, Su Yu had stopped going everywhere to complete the various tasks assigned by Lu Wenyan. He would only go to school and learn some new languages from Lu Wenyan before going home early. He was focused on reaching the 8th stage source opening realm. That was a major milepoint in the source opening realm. Upon reaching that point, he would finally gain the ability to utilize his source chi. His strength would increase, and together with his divine character, he would be having a much easier time ambushing great strength cultivators. I don't know. Lu Wenyan was unsure. He has been progressing rapidly. In less than 2 months, he has advanced from the 4th stage to the 7th stage. He's even getting near the 8th stage. Bai Feng's source opening codex has helped him a lot. But at the 7th stage, that willpower text will no longer be that helpful to him. Didn't you say that you're writing him a willpower text? Why don't you write a new source opening codex for him? The principal was looking forward to Su Yu's breakthrough. If he managed to do that, he would be the first 8th stage source opening cultivator produced by the Nanyuan Secondary School in 20 years. 20 years ago, there was an 8th stage source opening genius in the school, but that wasn't really something they could take credit for. That fellow was someone from the capital, only transferred here temporarily to take the academy entrance examination before leaving. It won't help. Lu Wenyan shook his head. He said, I already know what I'm writing for him, but I need you to pay for it. What are you writing? The principal asked cautiously. First chapter of the Lightning Source Blade, Great Strength version. Lu Wenyan said, he doesn't lack cultivation methods. He can get even more cultivation methods at the academy. However, he lacks martial techniques written with willpower. He can practice from a regular book, but that would be too slow. Only a willpower text can help him rapidly learn and master this technique. Lightning Source Blade? The middle-tier profound grade martial technique? The principal exclaimed in shock. He asked, can he learn it? Wait, no, can you even write it? Are you sure you can write something like that now? Strength was not the thing that made cultural researchers great. After all, warriors were actually very strong as well. Cultural researchers have different types of strength. For example, their willpower texts. A half-assed source opening codex written by Bai Feng is enough to greatly help Su Yu, bringing him to the 8th stage source opening realm without using any blood essence. What do you mean by that? Lu Wenyan glared furiously. It's only a low-tier profound grade technique. It's also a great strength version of the technique. Why can't I write something like that? Who do you think you're looking down on? However, you need to pay for it. I want 100 drops of Rumble Lightning Beast. I only need the blood of great strength beasts. Additionally, I also want the powdered form of their horns. I'll also need the hide of an infinite strength beast to be written on. You. The principal's eyes widened. He did a short calculation and said, 100 drops of great strength Rumble Lightning Beast. That will cost me 100 merit points. The horn would cause 5 merit points each. The infinite strength beast hide suitable for willpower text writing won't come cheaper than 10 merit points, that's about 115 merit points in total. Are you robbing me? Uncouth. Lu Wenyan berated, "You're too uncouth. Why are you thinking about money all the time? It's only 100 merit points. Wasn't the school rewarded 1,000 merit points for the victory over the cult previously? That's the paltry savings of the school. Paltry my ass. Didn't I kill a Skysore cultivator? I didn't even ask you about that. Be honest. Did you steal the merit points for that kill from me? What do you mean I stole your points?" The principal was stamping his foot in anger. "Stop acting dumb. You used our points to purchase a Skysore Realm original text. Have you forgotten? You finished all your points and even owe the Great Siok Cultural Research Academy a lot of points. You should be glad that the capital decides to forget about your debt, not getting even more greedy. Do you not know shame? You're actually accusing me of stealing your merit?" Lu Wenyan coughed and interrupted, "Oh, I finally remember. I was forced to spend my merit points. I need to increase my strength and protect Nanyuan. That should be an expense I can claim from Nanyuan." Cough, cough. Fine, that is my personal expense. But we're training a genius for Nanyuan. It is only natural for the school to support that, right? Think about it. Su Yu is a rare genius of Nanyuan. My willpower alone will have a hard time completing the lightning source blade for him. If he manages to learn the lightning source blade, he will be able to stand strong even in the capital. What do you think? If he gets first place in his academy exams, wouldn't it bring glory to our school? Wouldn't it bring more merit your way? If he does well in the capital, won't he return and repay the school in the future? If he reaches the Skysore or even the Cloud Breach realm, a tiny bit of his grace when he's in a good mood will be invaluable. For example, writing a random willpower text for the school when he feels like it. That one text will be worth everything you spend today. Old Wang. You need to look further. As an old man, why is your worldview still so narrow? Lu Wenyan advised with a disappointed expression, "He is talented. He is tenacious. He has decent foundations. He is also someone who remembers those who have been good to him. If you don't spend now, why would he repay you in the future?" The principal stroked his beard, pulling at them real hard as he sighed, "That's over 100 points. So what? You can get that much by killing only one Skysore cultivator. Only? Go on. Go ahead and do it. Kill a Skysore cultivator for me then." Lu Wenyan turned impatient, "Why are you wasting our time here? What's the point of keeping all those merit points unspent? The school has been awarded a decent amount of points recently. Nobody is in need of them for now. Just pretend you're using them on me. I'm a Skysore cultivator. I'm eligible for certain benefits from the prefectural government. You can claim what you spend on me from the government." As a cultural researcher, even if he wasn't in a cultural research academy, he was still eligible for some basic grants for his research. Writing willpower texts and refining his body were both activities that required the support of cultivation resources. He was only a tiny cultural researcher in a small city, but he should still receive the benefits a cultural researcher should get. The principal glared at Lu Wenyan and said, "Claim? I asked previously. The capital said that you owe them 30,000 merit points. You won't be able to repay them your entire life. Don't even dream of it." 30,000? Lu Wenyan blanked out. His expression turned odd. "Only 30,000? When I left the academy back then, I owed them over 100,000 points. Why is it only 30,000 now?" The principal was speechless. What the fuck? So this fellow was aware of his debt? After taking a deep breath, the principal said, "In any case, you can no longer claim anything from the capital. I can sponsor this writing session, but I'll say this. If Su Yu manages to achieve willpower materialization one day, he needs to repay us with one willpower text. That is only natural. If he doesn't repay the school, I'll write one for you after recovering my willpower." A smile bloomed on Lu Wenyan's face. Finally, he could avoid spending the little wealth he had. At that, the principal let out another sigh. He couldn't help but to say, "The capital isn't giving you even the basic grant a Skysore cultural researcher is entitled to. How are you going to refine your body? Are you going to take a few more years? You're too old for that. It doesn't matter." Lu Wenyan smiled. "I have enough to eat and drink and that's good enough for me. By the way, did you ask them about my debt? Why is it only 30,000? I did. Researcher Wu paid 50,000 of your debt." Lu Wenyan frowned. After a long while, he scolded, "A fool. Huh? Brainless fool. When your debt reaches a certain level, you don't really care about it anymore. What's the point of paying 50,000 points? Furthermore, the so-called debt wasn't something I had really borrowed from them. The debt had only grown so big due to my arrogant words back then. Lu Wenyan felt helpless. 50,000 merit points wasn't a small number. He couldn't be bothered to keep talking about that anymore. He shifted the topic and said, forget about that. Prepare the materials. I'll write the lightning source blade tomorrow. If that kid can really learn it, even as an 8th stage source opening cultivator, with the lightning source blade and his divine character, he will be able to defeat regular 2nd or 3rd stage great strength cultivators. The principal nodded in agreement, no longer thinking about the price of the materials. If that kid could really reach a high height in the future, his conscience would be the only thing deciding if he would repay the secondary school or not. After all, Lu Wenyan was still here. He was a Skysar cultural researcher. The principal might object, but if Lu Wenyan insisted, nobody would object even if they had to spend everything the school had. The principal was walking away when he suddenly stopped and said, Old Lu, if you really have no choice, just give up. If you use the blood of divines or devils to refine your body, you can reach the 3rd stage immediately. After a few years, you might be able to enter the Cloud Breach or even the Mountain Sea realm. Lu Wenyan grinned and said, give up on what? I don't know what you're talking about. Old Lu, you're over 70. The principal had a complicated look in his eyes. Instructor Lu was no longer young. Lu Wenyan glared at the principal furiously. So what if I'm over 70? An infinite strength cultivator like you dare to question a Skysar cultivator like me? Do you even know how to fly? The principal was speechless. He left while mumbling to himself. That old fellow was still as stubborn as ever. After the principal left, Lu Wenyan heaved a long breath and grumbled, blood of divines and devils, do you think I'm stupid? Trying to win me over with only a few drops of blood? Dream on. Back then, I owed them more than 100,000 merit points. They should offer me at least a complete corpse of a king. Over 70. Lu Wenyan muttered to himself. He was indeed not young anymore. But he decided to keep waiting for a bit. If Suyu could really go far, and Lu Wenyan needed to observe more before making his decision. 5 years wouldn't be enough. 10 years. He needed to keep observing for at least 10 years. He needed to see if Suyu could stay true to himself even after entering the capital, remain indomitable, and continue advancing forward. I'm not about to die so soon. I can still wait a while. Lu Wenyan muttered to himself. If Suyu proved to be a disappointment, he would continue waiting. He would be willing to keep waiting until he was dead before returning to the academy. Wu, what happens there will depend on what you do. Lu Wenyan looked out the window. Since he had waited 50 years, he didn't lack the patience to wait more. Shortly after, he pulled himself out of the melancholy and cursed, fool. 50,000 points. You're better off giving those points to me. Why did you use them to pay the debt? You're as stupid as 50 years ago. No wonder you're still stuck as a senior researcher after so many years. You couldn't even get promoted into a deputy principal. Cultural researchers are supposed to be smart. But you, do you have the brain of a pig? Lu Wenyan spent a while cursing away, but he still couldn't reduce his anger. 50,000 points. Was that fellow crazy? Who told him to pay the debt? Chapter 48, 8th Stage Source Opening, 1, Su Family's Residence. Qin Hao, who was still on sick leave from school, was reading in the living room. His head kept dropping while his vision was spinning. Telling him to read was basically the same as killing him. While yawning, he forced his eyes to stay open. Looking at the shut door of Su Yu's bedroom, he wondered how his friend managed to stay so long in the room. Did top students not need to use the toilet or something? Inside the room, Su Yu had consumed the drop of source qi liquid formed by Baifeng. The source qi density gathered by this drop wasn't that high, but it was just nice for him. At the same time, he had also swallowed the drop of iron-winged bird blood essence he had purchased with $30,000. With the source swallowing technique activated, he maximized the speed in which he was absorbing source qi. Once again, he enjoyed the feeling of having all 9 acupoints temporarily opened. 7 of his acupoints were properly opened while his 8th acupoint was half opened. His 7 opened acupoints were glowing with a radiance no ordinary person could see. A circuit took form connecting all these acupoints, and the circuit was slowly forming a connection with the 8th acupoint. Opening the spirit palace, forming a proper connection with source qi. The 9th acupoint, known as the 100 openings, could connect his body with the ambient source qi of the world. Meanwhile, the 8th acupoint, the spirit palace, could connect the acupoints within one's body into a circuit. That was why a cultivator would only gain proper combat strength upon reaching the 8th stage source opening realm. The source opening codex had always been the foundational cultivation method of humanity. Every human would have some source chi gathered in their body. But without opening the 8th acupoint, they would have no way of utilizing the gathered source chi. They could only allow the source chi to passively temper their acupoints. After opening the 8th acupoint, they would gain the ability to actually control the source chi and practice martial techniques. By utilizing source chi, their moves would be much more destructive than before. The biggest difference between the 8th and the 9th stage was that those in the 8th stage could only use their own source chi, while those in the 9th stage could utilize the ambient source chi around them as well. After opening the Spirit Palace, I'll be able to start using martial techniques. My offensive power will increase in situations where I fail to kill a great strength cultivator after hitting them with my blade will no longer happen. Suyu was absorbing source chi at a rapid pace. He had a feeling that his body was going to explode soon. A source opening cultivator was not able to contain too much source chi within their body. Not only had Suyu activated the source swallowing technique, he had even used a drop of source chi liquid. Because of that, he was absorbing source chi at a faster speed than even regular great strength cultivators. Temper the acupoint. With a roar, Suyu gathered his source chi at his Spirit Palace acupoint. He had been stuck at the 7th stage for quite a while. He had reached the 7th stage on the 16th of May. It was already the 5th of June. It had been nearly 20 days since his last advancement. That was the longest he had been stuck ever since he had obtained the ability to use the source swallowing technique. He even had Bai Feng's source opening codex helping him, so he was getting impatient after 20 days of no breakthroughs. Source chi converged on him and the air around him trembled. Humming sounds echoed in his room. Outside, Chen Hao had an odd look on his face. For some reason, he felt incredibly comfortable. Source chi was gathering, and he could feel it even though he still couldn't see it. That sensation was similar to having a bowl of hot soup after several days of hunger. It sure is comfortable here at Yu's place. That's probably because Dad's not here to nag at me all the time. After muttering to himself, Chen Hao looked at the shut door of the bedroom again. Was Yu cultivating martial techniques in the room? It was getting quite noisy. Still not opening? Suyu felt himself nearing his limit. If he couldn't open his acupoint today, he would have wasted the drop of source chi liquid and blood essence. That was basically the same as spending nearly $100,000 for nothing. He was halfway through opening the acupoint, and if he didn't complete it this time, he would need another drop of blood essence or even source chi liquid the next time he repeated the attempt. At that point, he would be doing more than cultivating. He would be driving himself straight to bankruptcy. Suyu was finding it hard to bear with the amount of source chi in his body, so he stood up. He needed to do something to vent his excess source chi as he felt like his body was going to burst apart soon. When cultivating, one wasn't forced to remain in the lotus position or remain still. Sitting still in the lotus position was merely helpful in staying calm and focused on the process. That was the most efficient way one could absorb source chi. The more one moved, the lower the efficiency would be, and the more source chi would go to waste. But that was no longer an issue for Suyu since he had too much source chi in his body. In any case, all the gathered source chi would disperse if he failed this breakthrough anyway. After stretching his arms, he started practicing a fist technique. Tiger Fist, a low-tier yellow-grade fist technique that was also a foundational fist technique of the human race. This martial technique mainly served to temper one's body instead of combat. It had low efficiency in the utilization of source chi and focused more on the strength of one's physical body. Suyu's fists shot forth rapidly with the momentum of a pouncing tiger. This technique was actually an adaptation of a martial technique of the actual tiger race. It focused on ferocity and its moves were simple. Strength gathering through breathing, strength amplification through the positioning of legs, before bringing the strength upward. Ha! A roar erupted from Suyu's mouth. When practicing fist techniques, the act of shouting would also bolster one's presence. That was why many people would actually shout during combat. Outside, Chen Hao jumped. For some reason, that roar from Suyu sounded much more imposing than usual, giving him a sensation that a tiger was pouncing on him. Downstairs, an old man felt his ceiling trembling and looked up while clicking his tongue in wonder. This kid's tiger fist is getting pretty good. He's good enough to be put to use in the army. Although this kid was still in the source opening realm, the old man had to admit that the roar earlier held an imposing presence even those in the great strength realm would have a hard time releasing. Even without personally witnessing the punch, the old man could still hear that there was something special about that roar earlier. In fact, that was a roar Suyu had released with some of his willpower mixed into it. Therefore, it was only natural that the roar sounded different. Ha! One roar after another resounded, and as Suyu threw punch after punch, rumbling sounds echoed in the room. Apart from punching, all his fingers were used as well. The tiger fist might be a punching technique, but the claws of a tiger was also a potent weapon. With a pop, Suyu's arm shot forth and his fingers stabbed through his closet's door. He merely shot the damaged closet a glance and forgot about it. His room was too small, so it was normal to cause some damage while training there. After a while, he finally exhausted enough source chi that he no longer felt like bursting apart. He continued absorbing source chi to temper his acupoint. Slowly, the 8th acupoint opened and formed a connection with his 7th acupoint. The more he practiced the tiger fist, the better he felt. His roars were getting louder and louder. Abruptly, he felt his strength increasing exponentially. Without any hesitation, he sent his right fist toward his closet. Boom! The closet's door was blasted apart. Even the closet broke apart with wood shavings flying everywhere. Ha ha ha! Suyu couldn't be bothered to spare any attention to the broken closet as a wide smile covered his face. Even though he was calmer than his peers, he still couldn't stop himself from feeling excited. His Spirit Palace acupoint had been opened. He had reached the 8th stage source opening realm. Boom! The door was pushed open as Chen Hao rushed into the room. He first looked at the destroyed closet before looking at Suyu. Scratching his head, he asked, Are you fine? I know Uncle Su has a bad taste in closets, but you don't have to smash it apart, right? Meanwhile, Suyu was panting heavily while looking at Chen Hao speechlessly. Was the closet the issue here? The issue should be him destroying the closet with one punch. Was this idiot even aware of what that signified? Prior to the 8th stage source opening realm, at best, one would only be able to punch through a closet door. But the entire closet had been destroyed. Did this fellow think nothing of it? If it was an ordinary person instead of a closet, that punch would have blasted that person apart. Suyu couldn't even be bothered to explain himself. He pulled his arm back and stood up. After a short stretch, he checked his fist and saw that it remained uninjured. During the punch, a small amount of source chi had also erupted from his fist, protecting it from damage. 8th stage source opening realm. Suyu was overjoyed. He was 20 days away from the examinations and he had successfully hit one of his goals, reaching the 8th stage. I need a personal saber. I also need a proper martial technique and adapt to my new strength and the new technique. Then, I'll be able to look for a chance to kill a great strength cult member. I wonder if there are still any of them left in Nanyuan. I hope there are. Recently, the Windcatcher department has been very active. Many of the well-hidden cult members were caught, making it difficult to encounter a large number of cult members. He would consider himself lucky if he could even encounter one. While thinking, Suyu looked at Qin Hao and said, Pick up the clothes and clean the room for me. What? Qin Hao had a blank look. I didn't do this. Sure. Go read instead. 1 hour. Cough, cough. Let me help you clean the room. Qin Hao instantly decided that he would rather clean the room than read. For him, reading was akin to torture. Only then did Qin Hao finally realize something. He asked, Did you reach the 8th stage? You only realized that now? Suyu looked at Qin Hao speechlessly. This guy's reaction time sure was slow. Huh? Really? Qin Hao was shocked, this is too fast. I told you before that I'm nearing the 8th stage. Is it so surprising that I've finally broken through? Suyu frowned, next time, you need to cultivate while I'm cultivating as well. You're wasting all the source chi around us. Qin Hao had just broken through into the 4th stage. However, it wasn't hard to reach the 5th stage from the 4th stage. After opening one ear acupoint, it was much easier to open the next ear acupoint. The entrance examination was 20 days away. If Qin Hao was lucky, coupled with the help of rich source chi density, he might be able to reach the 5th stage before then. Although he could probably enter the academy with his current cultivation and the bonus 30 marks, having a better result in the examination would still be helpful for him. Students entering the academies with bad results would generally have a hard time in the academies. 8th stage. Qin Hao was dispirited, to the point he wasn't even listening to Suyu. Before this, he had been happy with the 4th stage. Although Suyu had reached the 7th stage, that was still different from the 8th stage. In a fight, he might not lose to a 7th stage Suyu. But at the 8th stage, their bodies no longer played that big of a role in combat. Rather, it was the utilization of source chi. Even if he grew 10 times stronger, he still wouldn't be Suyu's match. I'm really stupid, right? Qin Hao was disheartened. I can't even bring myself to read. My dad told me that the source opening codex you gave me is something good. Only a big shot can write something like that. You only gave it to me because you see me as your brother. But I simply can't read, and now you're already at the 8th stage while I'm still stuck at the 4th stage. Suyu did not try to lift Chinhao's mood and said, do not compare yourself with me. I am someone chasing after the geniuses of the capital. You're not doing that. You only need to catch up with Zhou Chong. If you reach a point where you can whoop his ass easily, you can already be considered a successful person. But didn't you tell me to expand my worldview and aim for the Skyso realm? What nonsense is that? Goals need to be set in stages. First, you will overtake Zhou Chong. Then, enter the Great Strength realm before entering the Infinite Strength realm. You can then start aiming for the Skyso realm. Did I tell you to reach the Skyso realm in one go? Cut your goals into segments and achieve them one at a time. That way, you can stay motivated. Suyu was speaking from experience. A big goal would seem too far away. By cutting his path toward the ultimate goal into multiple smaller goals, he would find his journey much easier than before. It was also easier to maintain his motivation. Is that so? Chinhao gave it some thought and nodded. Sure. In that case, my current goal is to kick Zhou Chang's ass. I'll go to school and whoop his ass tomorrow. For some reason, Suyu found himself pitying Zhou Chong. He was saying that as a metaphor. He actually meant for Chinhao to surpass Zhou Chong in cultivation. Furthermore, Chinhao had already beaten Zhou Chong once. How could he bring himself to do it a second time? Whatever. Get to work. When you're done cleaning the room, go to the Xia Trade Company with me. Chapter 49, 8th Stage Source Opening, 2. Suyu wanted to buy some blood essence and see if he could find a suitable weapon for himself. If he had enough money, he also wanted to buy a suitable martial technique. The secondary school would provide foundational martial techniques. Those were low-tier yellow-grade techniques. At a place like Nanyuan, even if the school provided a better martial technique, the students wouldn't be able to use it either. As for students capable of reaching the 8th Stage Source Opening realm, Nanyuan might only see one every few decades. Of course, the instructors had middle-tier yellow-grade or even better techniques, but merit points would be required to purchase those. Suyu would rather spend some cash instead of merit points. He had finally realized how much more useful merit points were than cash. For example, he would be able to purchase original Myriad Race texts after entering the academy with merit points. Those were things he wouldn't be able to purchase with money. In fact, he also had a martial technique with him. The blood-clotting blade he had looted previously was a middle-tier yellow-grade technique. His father also had a military-issue technique, but that technique was more suited for those in the Great Strength realm. The present him would find that technique hard to comprehend. Chinhao hurriedly got to work. While sweeping the floor, he asked, do you want to buy some beast meat from the Xia Trade Company? We can roast them when we return. They taste wonderful when roasted. All you know is eat. Suyu chided. We'll see. Also, it would be fine if nobody asks, but if someone asks the reason I'm buying blood essence, just say that I'm studying divine characters. Okay. Got it. Chinhao wasn't really too worried about that. However, he was also curious as to the reason Suyu was buying blood essence. If he remembered it correctly, Suyu had bought quite a lot of blood essence by now. This fellow couldn't be consuming blood, right? According to his father, it was very dangerous for someone to consume blood essence before reaching the Great Strength realm. Why don't you teach me how to form a divine character as well? Huh? Suyu was stunned. Are you sure? My dad said that cultural researchers are actually very strong as well. Of course, the warriors are still stronger. Suyu rolled his eyes. Forget it. You want to form a divine character? How about you finish reading and master the source opening codex I gave you first? Suyu didn't even bother explaining much to Chenhao. That fellow would probably disregard most of what he heard, so it would be a waste of time. He was never one to never think too deeply into things. 1 hour later. Xia Trade Company. Suyu still had $170,000 and 10 gold coins with him. Out of respect for Lu Wenyin, the trade company had been allowing him to purchase blood essence at 30,000 per drop recently. That was much cheaper than their previous price. 3 drops of iron-winged bird blood essence. Suyu was already an old customer at this point. He went straight to the blood and meat section and the supervisor personally received him. The supervisor did not ask much and directly had some employees go get what Suyu wanted. When she saw that Suyu was looking at a different section, he smiled and asked, Mr. Su, are you interested in something else today? What's the price of your weapons? Depends on what you need. As a rule of thumb, source-opening cultivators only require weapons forged of regular iron. Those at the 8th stage source-opening realm can start using yellow-grade weapons. Those weapons are more suited for them and will be helpful for source chi channeling. The supervisor continued introducing weapons, cultivation methods, and martial techniques are the same. They're separated into the grades of heaven, earth, profound, and yellow. Their grade is mainly decided by the materials used, which will affect the rate in which they could channel source chi. Su Yu nodded. He knew that regular iron did not have the ability to channel source chi. The training blades in the secondary school were all made of regular iron. These weapons were cheap. However, materials capable of channeling source chi weren't cheap either. Thus, when cultivators reached a point where they needed weapons, they wouldn't be able to get these weapons for cheap. Those in the great strength and infinite strength realms only need yellow-grade weapons. At the Skysoar realm, they will need to make an upgrade to profound-grade weapons. The richer ones can even start using earth-grade weapons. Of course, only the big shots at the capital can afford to use those. Nobody in Nanyuan can afford something like that. The supervisor flashed a smile and asked, Mr. Su, do you want regular iron weapons or proper cultivator weapons? Proper cultivator weapons. Su Yu gave it some thought. A poor weapon will only last me until the middle stage great strength realm. At the late stage great strength realm, one needs to use at least a middle tier yellow grade weapon, right? Yes, but it is still too early for you to think about that, Mr. Su. The supervisor was telling the truth. That was still quite far away from Su Yu. Therefore, a low-tier yellow-grade weapon will be sufficient for you, Mr. Su. Su Yu did not say anything about that. He could unleash the strength of a late-stage great-strength cultivator with blood essence. He was afraid that a low-tier yellow-grade weapon would be broken after a few times of doing so. I want a middle-tier weapon. I can keep using it instead of changing when I reach the late-stage great-strength realm. Su Yu asked, what's the price? Depends on the type of weapon. But for middle-tier yellow-grade weapons, the price ranges between 100 to 300,000. So expensive? Su Yu frowned. Premium regular iron weapons can be purchased at around 3 to 5,000 each. Even low-tier yellow-grade weapons will only be around 10,000 each. You're right. But a single increase in tier would mean higher forging difficulty and better materials. The cost is much higher. The supervisor explained, Mr. Su, your instructor Lu's student. We won't deliberately raise our price when selling to you. That is a fair price. These weapons are mainly prepared for late-stage, great-strength cultivators. Most middle-stage great-strength cultivators won't use them. For those at the 7th stage great-strength realm and above, that is an expensive but affordable price. Su Yu was speechless. Affordable? Were they serious? Would his father be able to afford a weapon like that? Wait, his father would probably really be able to afford it. But his father would have to pay the price of losing half his life savings to buy only an average quality weapon. To get the best in the tier, his father would probably need to exhaust all his savings for one such weapon. After spending 90,000 on the 3 drops of blood essence, I still have 80,000 in cash and 10 gold coins, adding to a total of $180,000 in value. I can afford a weapon, but this is too expensive. I'll also be needing martial techniques, I'm better off forgetting that. I guess I'll be practicing the blood-clotting blade. It is trash, but it's good enough for now. After a quick calculation, Su Yu discovered that although he could earn money easily, it was even easier to spend all he had earned. He was going to finish spending the 300,000 his father left him soon. Even the 10 gold coins he looted previously would probably be spent soon. His instructor was right. Martial cultivation was for the rich, while studying was for the poor. If even great strength weapons were so expensive, how about the infinite strength realm? Or the Skysoar realm? Cultivation methods, martial techniques, weapons, blood essence, pills, at the thought of all that, Su Yu shivered. No wonder those fellows from the Myriad Race Cult were so eager to hunt the Myriad Race Cult, sparing no effort to get even one cult member. Those cult members were basically walking bags of money. One could earn a single merit point for an early stage great strength cult member, 2 merit points for middle stage, and 3 merit points for late stage. There was much more money in that compared to the paltry salary they received. Before long, Su Yu received the blood essence he bought. As for the weapons sold in the trade company, he did not bother checking them up. Most weapons sold in Nanyuan were standardized weapons similar to what the military used. If he wanted custom-made weapons, he needed to go to the capital. In any case, custom-made weapons would be excessively expensive anyway. He would probably have to forget about it and just use a regular standardized weapon for now. A standardized middle-tier yellow-grade weapon was priced at $150,000. That was the price after his special discount. As for his choice to use sabers, that was because that was what the secondary school had trained him in. That was also his father's weapon of choice in the army. There was a saying that the saber represented the courage of soldiers. But the main reason for the saber to be so widespread in the military was due to the relative ease in which one could learn it. Weapons such as spear, sword, halberd, and so on were much harder to learn. With a saber in hand, one could make it work even if one was randomly swinging it around. One would not end up injuring oneself doing so. But if one did the same with a sword, perhaps one would only get away if one was using a broadsword. A smaller sword with a flexible blade could easily injure an inexperienced user. After paying for his purchases, Suyu was left with 30,000 in cash. He would need to keep that money for his daily expenses. He had completely given up on martial techniques. He was broke. Sure, he still had some merit points, but he had more use for them. He wasn't willing to waste them. 3 drops of blood essence can activate the book 3 times. I can use them for either cultivation or combat. They won't last long, sigh. My money is flowing away like tap water. Life is so hard. While leaving with what he had bought, he made a short calculation. With 3 drops of blood essence and 13 merit points, he hoped to reach the 9th stage source opening realm. He wouldn't be able to make more money for now. Nowadays, the source opening and the great strength realms weren't exactly money-making realms. If his instructor hadn't brought him everywhere to hunt the myriad race cult, he wouldn't even have the chance to earn more merit points. Nanyuan did not lack great strength cultivators. The entire Windcatcher department was eagerly waiting for more cult members to appear. How? What? Chin Hao, who was walking out of the trade company with Suyu, was still daydreaming about roasted beast meat. He appeared dazed when his name was suddenly called. If I sell my house, will my father whoop my ass when he returns and find his house gone? Chen Hao was dumbstruck. You was selling his house? Suyu continued muttering, if I sell the house, I can get at least $500,000. But I'm afraid that my father will come back and see that he no longer has a house. He'll probably pick up a saber and turn me into mincemeat on the sidewalk. Chen Hao nodded repeatedly, don't court death. If I sell my house, my parents can probably spend a lifetime hunting me down. You need to calm down. Chin Hao wiped his sweat. He was feeling nervous on behalf of Suyu. He concluded that a top student was very scared when they went crazy. I'm just saying. Do you think I'll really do it? Suyu smiled. How would he do that? Even if he wanted, he wouldn't be able to. The house was under his father's name. His father was absent and the ownership of the house had yet to be transferred. How was he supposed to sell it? Sigh. He regretted that he hadn't asked for the ownership before his father left. Otherwise, he could keep the house as his final trump card to be used during emergencies. All Heaven battlefield. Within a military tent. Su Long was muttering, I left that kid over $300,000. I'm also sending my monthly salary back. With my monthly salary of over $10,000, that is enough money to keep that kid fed for life. If he doesn't squander the money away, it will probably be enough for him to buy a small house in the capital by the time I return. Su Long was confident that his son wasn't the kind of person to spend money recklessly. Chapter 50, A Glimpse Behind the Curtain. 1. The Academy entrance examination season was drawing nearer and nearer. On the second day after Suyu went shopping, he went to school. There, he could feel the nervous atmosphere pervading the students. Those in the final year seemed to always be in a rush. The fighting trend in the school had also ended. None of the students were in any mood to pick fights any longer. Suyu was on his way to meet Lu Wenyan when he stumbled upon someone unexpected. Xia Bing. A squad leader in the Martial Dragon Guards, leader of the Martial Dragon Guards stationed in Nanyuan. During the Myriad Race cult's attack, the Martial Dragon Guards had been temporarily stationed in Nanyuan Secondary School. However, their actual Nanyuan base was somewhere else. Few people knew the actual location of the base. Xia Bing was a second-stage Skysoar expert. That was the same cultivation level the mayor had. Suyu was naturally aware of how powerful the Martial Dragon Guards were. He had wanted to join them previously. Even after learning about the prowess of cultural researchers, he still had a tiny urge to join the Martial Dragon Guards deep within his heart. But that wasn't an easy army to join. His father had been wanting to join them for many years but never succeeded. Xia Bing naturally saw Suyu as well. He was rushing away, but when he walked near Suyu, he stopped. When Suyu felt Xia Bing's gaze on him, he hurriedly stopped and bowed. Sir Xia. Xia Bing nodded. He studied Suyu for a bit before an odd look covered his face. You reached the 8th stage? Suyu was surprised that Xia Bing was paying him that much attention. He replied, yeah. I broke through yesterday. You're improving very fast. After a short pause, Xia Bing continued, I had thought that you would reach the 7th stage rapidly and slow down after that. It's quite surprising that you can reach the 8th stage. Suyu did not know what to say. Was Xia Bing actually paying attention to his progress? There was no connection whatsoever between the two of them. With the same serious expression that seemed eternally imprinted on his face, Xia Bing said, Bai Feng's source opening codex was merely an incomplete product. Since you can reach the 8th stage with it, it is clear that you have a decent talent in physical cultivation. I know your father. He has visited us multiple times to join us, but he is not good enough to join. Suyu felt somewhat awkward. He didn't know what to say to that as well. Xia Bing did not care about Suyu's reaction. He continued, I am also a veteran of the devil-subduing army. However, I joined the army much later than your father. He was already retired when I joined. 6 years ago, I was transferred to the Martial Dragon Guards and appointed the squad leader of the Nanyuan branch. Suyu remained silent. He did not know why Xia Bing was telling him all that. The Cultural Research Academy isn't as good as you think. They spend their time scheming against each other and can never amount to anything before achieving willpower materialization. I don't like the people there. I prefer war academies and the Martial Dragon Guards. Of course, my preference has nothing to do with you. His face turned solemn. Your father once said that since he couldn't join the Martial Dragon Guards, he hoped that his son could one day do so and continue serving under the prefect. You can consider joining the Martial Dragon War Academy instead. That place is not as dirty as the Cultural Research Academy. Sir. Suyu was astonished. Was Xia Bing trying to recruit him? Xia Longwu calmly said, the Martial Dragon Guards are stationed in the various cities. They are also in charge of selecting the preparatory soldiers of the prefecture. You were unqualified to join before. But that has changed. Of course, this is only a suggestion. I shouldn't be telling you all this, but your father is a fellow veteran of the devil-subduing army, so I don't mind telling you more. The Cultural Research Academy is a much more complicated place nowadays. It is unpeaceful inside with numerous factions. Some fellows who used to focus on research are starting to stir as well. Because of that, things are getting messier and messier there. Your current teacher Lu Wenyan, Bai Feng, who is trying to accept you as his personal student, and Bai Feng's teacher, researcher Hong, are from the same faction. The situation there is much more complicated than what I can tell you. In short, it won't do you good to get involved in that mess. Suyu was lost. He softly said, I don't understand what you're saying, sir. I'm only a secondary school student that has yet to get through the entrance examination. You'll come to understand. Xia Bing said, remember. Great Xia is still great Xia. He then walked away. Suyu sank into thought. After a short while, he smiled helplessly before walking away as well. He really didn't understand what Xia Bing was trying to say. Clearly, Xia Bing was trying to warn him of something, suggesting that the cultural research might not be that good and the Martial Dragon War Academy might be a better place with more focus on cultivation. In the past, Suyu would definitely be overjoyed to hear that. But he had already decided to enter the Great Xia Cultural Research Academy. In terms of willpower cultivation, there was no comparing a war academy with a cultural research academy. Furthermore, he had learned from Lu Wenyan for so long. His initial goal had been to join a cultural research academy. He had only changed his mind because he was worried that a cultural research academy wouldn't help with his combat strength, a concern that was no longer present. Inside the office. This time, Lu Wenyan wasn't reading. Instead, he was writing. From Suyu's perspective, the characters Lu Wenyan wrote were nice and much better looking than his. Something in your mind? Lu Wenyan did not have to look up to sense that something was troubling Suyu. Nothing. I stumbled on squad leader Xia just now. He told you to join the Martial Dragon War Academy? Yes. Ignore him. Surprisingly, Lu Wenyan wasn't furious. He sighed and said, did he say that the Cultural Research Academy does not suit you? Or did he say that the Cultural Research Academy has degenerated? Don't worry about it. This isn't the first time he said something like that. In fact, a lot of people in the Martial Dragon Guards are saying the same thing. He's right. The Cultural Research Academy is no longer the same. After the 5th principal passed and the 6th principal took office, the academy entered a phase of rapid development. The rapid growth has inevitably brought about some negative influences. 50 years ago, the academy wasn't as strong as it is now. But it is also not as messy. There is no avoiding that. Ambition grows alongside strength. Schemes, lies, and competitions are things you need to experience. It is also a form of training. The ones capable of rising in such a chaotic situation will be the truly strong ones. Su frowned. Instructor, are things really that messy in the Cultural Research Academy? It's not that bad. The overall situation is still under control. Naturally, there are things happening in the dark. Lu Wenyan looked up at this favorite student of his and said, the Martial Dragon Guards are very unhappy with the academy, but that's mainly because of the prefect. What? Su was astonished. Is Prefect Xia unhappy with the academy? I guess so. Lu Wenyan sighed. This has nothing to do with you, so you don't really need to care about it too much. But since Xia Bing has touched on the topic, I'll tell you a bit about it. Prefect Xia, I won't be commenting on how he is as a person. But the various factions have different views on him. Some see him as a strict person, some see him as a strong person, and some see him as a stubborn person. Those were the 3 terms most commonly used to describe Prefect Xia. Stubborn? Su caught on to the main point. He asked, what do you mean by stubborn? The literal meaning of the word. Lu Wenyan put his pen down and said, it's not derogatory, but some of his political views are unpopular among a lot of people. Back then at the All-Heaven battlefield, he encountered a lot of resistance due to his political views. Why? He's too stubborn. On the All-Heaven battlefield, numerous races fight against each other. Some races are our sworn enemies that can't be spared. But there are also races that can actually be roped in as allies. At the very least, we can turn them into neutral parties. Lu Wenyan shook his head and sighed, but during the period of time when Prefect Xia was in command of the devil-subduing army, he had slaughtered the armies of many different races, including several neutral races that turned antagonistic toward the human race as a result. That was why he was removed from his position.